Hello, children, and I hope you're a little older, like 13 or higher, before Mom lets you watch this one. Holy crap. Are we going to go in deep on babysitters? Now, I'm a Gen Zer. I'm sorry, Gen Zer. Oh my God. Gen Xer. Okay? So, after the baby boomers. And we are the children that time forgot. Nobody gives a crap about Gen Xers, and Gen Xers don't give a crap about anybody else either. So I guess it balances out. So I'm sure you've heard stories, comedian stuff talking about how that Gen Xers were basically raised themselves, right? Um, and kind of we were the badasses of generations, and that was pretty much true. Okay, so both mom and dad were working probably in a factory somewhere. Okay, so gone a lot, and if you were lucky, you had a mom and dad that had different shifts, right? So mom could be there in the morning, and then dad could be there at night, right? And both of them still working. But if you have parents who work the same shift, then you're going to have to go to a babysitter. Okay, they didn't have daycare centers. Okay, where you could drop your kid off with a bunch of other kids, right? That didn't exist. So you had to go to a babysitter's house. And sometimes these were people you knew, and sometimes they were not. So let me just give you my experience with babysitters. Okay? So, early on, some of them, I remember one, you only remember the bad ones, right? So, the there's this I know we babysat, there's this older woman. She was probably in her late 50s, early 60s, right? And I don't remember much about what was happening when she babysat us, because it was pretty benign, I guess. I mean, I remember, but I don't remember anything specific about it. So, I mean, she was probably, the best babysitter that we had, really, because I don't remember anything. Now, then there was this babysitter that she had like a short haircut, glasses, and she had a little boy. And I don't know where my parents found this person, if this is a friend of a friend type situation or whatever. But every day was exactly the same, and the rules never changed. Now, rule number one: you do not play with any of my son's toys. Okay? And you do not sit in the living room. Okay, so we don't go to his room. We can't go into the living room. We have to stay in the kitchen at the counter. So we would basically just sit there at this counter to start with, and then around lunchtime, and watch her kid play in the living room, right? With his toys that we weren't allowed to touch. So then around lunchtime, she would make Spam sandwiches. Now, this was every lunch. Every lunch, she would break out a can of Spam, cut it up, and we would eat Spam sandwiches. That was it. And then after the Spam sandwich, then she sent me and my sister to nap, right? And I guess it was her bed. It was a full-size bed. So we would go in there and turn out the lights. You guys sleep, and then Soon after we woke up, one of our parents picked us up. So that was every day. Sit at the counter, eat a spam sandwich, take a nap, and then mom and dad picks you up. So, not abusive, but not very fun, not very entertaining. I mean, we could see the TV from the counter where we had to stay. But I guess she didn't want us on her furniture, I guess. We were allowed to set, most houses back then had a counter with these orange bar stool high back chairs, right? And so that's where we sat. We sat at the counter and we could watch TV from, 20 feet away, and watch her kid play. But we weren't allowed to play with any of his toys. And I don't remember playing with him, to be honest. So that was babysitter number one. Then later on, my sister was old enough to go to school. And so it was just me being babysat. And so I think they got one of the girls from church to babysit me at our own home. So this was on the Rushville Road, I think. I don't remember exactly what it was, but that was when we had a nice house. Okay, so this was a nice house. Mom and dad both working, so nice house, 2 cars, boats, the whole spiel. So we had it pretty good, and had my own room, right? So I remember this woman would come over, and she was, I don't know, she was very young. So she's either late teen or early 20s. So she would come over and babysit me, and my mom and dad would leave. And I got to do pretty much whatever I wanted to because it's my house, right? So playing and all that stuff, that was all fine. But then nap time would come. And I always knew when it was time for nap time because I could see the white Mustang pull up in our driveway. And I knew, okay, it's nap time. So she would basically shut me up in my room and tell me, now, don't you come out of this room. You stay in here. It's nap time. You need to lay down in your bed and you need to take a nap. And don't you dare come out of this room. Okay? So her boyfriend would show up, basically. And they would have their little tryst or whatever. Well, I couldn't get a good look at this guy from my bedroom window. So one day I decided, I'm going to check this stuff out. So I started yelling, hey, I need to go to the bathroom. And so she gets, comes to the door, and she takes me to go to the bathroom. And as I'm walking out, the door to my mom and dad's room was cracked open, and I could see this guy in my mom and dad's bed, right? So I just walked past. I didn't stare or anything. I just took a quick glimpse, right? But it was cracked just enough I could see through there and see that guy. And I know he saw me looking at him. So I go to the bathroom. Then I say, I need something to drink. I'm going to get something to drink. So she takes me into the kitchen area, right, which is next to the living room. So I get a cup, and I go and I sit on our couch. And his shoes, or a pair of shoes there, next to the couch. So I asked him, I said, whose shoes are these? And she goes, I don't know. And I said, are these that guy's in my mom and dad's bed? That guy is in my mom and dad's bed. Are these his shoes? And she's like, I think so. And he's like, oh, okay. And then I went back to bed, right? So that was another baby. But she was kind to me, she just took advantage of the situation, and had her boyfriend come over on a regular basis, and mess up my mom and dad's bed. So, not terrible. And then the creme de la creme, the best ever, the most life damaging, toxic type of environment that you could possibly imagine. I went and stayed at my dad's sister's. Wow, that was an experience. So, this was a rather large woman. Okay, we're talking well over 270. And her husband was about the same size, if not bigger. And so, real meaty people. And, they lived in a, older house. So, here were the rules there. My mom would drop us off, and we would have some of the kind of cheap ass cereal. I don't know what it was, but with powdered milk. Okay, because I guess they were on food stamps, and I guess powdered milk was what they got. So powdered milk is the most horrible thing you can imagine what it tastes like. All right, so synthetic milk mixed with some nasty, dirty water, sink water. So that's what we got for breakfast. And then after breakfast, everybody goes outside. Okay? So all her kids, except for the two babies, she had two. One of them was like a toddler and the other one was an infant. And so one was like 2 and one was newborn. And my sister got to stay inside because she took care of the babies, right? But everybody else go outside and, go outside, and then she would lock the doors. So we were not allowed back in the house, except if we had to do a number 2, right? She would let us in and, to do a number 2 and then whatever. But, if we had to pee, girl or boy, you did that outside. And there was no lunchtime. Okay? You were outside all day, and the only food we got, after that bracing cereal and fake milk breakfast was she had 2 apple trees in her yard. And so we would eat these apples, most of the time they weren't ripe, so we didn't like green apples. And anybody who's ever eaten green apples knows that just runs right through you, right? So we'd eat them apples and then have them run right through us, and then it's knocking on the, we're pounding on, I gotta go. Right? So she'd let us in to go to the bathroom, then right back outside. Now, sometimes it would be raining. Okay, so, it was too cold, right? So she wouldn't put us outside. Instead, she put us in the attic. So she had this attic, unfurnished, just empty space, right? And the way I remember it, and this could be wrong, was like, it was kind of like pre-plaster walls. So you had these wood strips, and these walls, and just wood strips, that, with little small gaps in it, right? In the whole space, right? No place to sit down, no chairs, no toys, nothing. Just an empty room. And it was a big room, but it was empty. And so she would set us up there and lock the door, right? So she had this one room, she had a lock on the outside of it so that she could lock us in to the attic. So again, we couldn't come out of there unless we had to go to the bathroom. Of course, she didn't want us doing number 1 there, but, so she let us go out to use the bathroom, but that was it. Okay? And again, no lunch. I don't remember ever having lunch with her. We had that cereal breakfast, and that was it. And like, all the comedians or anybody you've ever heard talk about Gen Xers, we drank water out of the hose. So we ate green apples and drank water out of the hose. And for entertainment, we would stomp bees. Okay? So we'd have this contest of who could stomp the most bees before they got stung. Right? That was what we did for fun. So, not the best, okay? Like I said, spent all day outside, weren't allowed to go in, nothing to eat except for, cereal and fake milk. And, so not a real good time. And, you had playing with your cousins or whatever. But, that was it. Now, here we come to the nefarious part. And this is the part where if you're not over 13 years old, you should probably stop watching. So, like I said, my aunt and uncle were rather large people, and they were some sick, twisted perverts. And they had these giant, I don't know why you needed so many pictures, giant sex book with positions for fat people. Okay? So, and this thing was like out in the hallway for anybody that walked past to see, right? And I looked in there and saw those naked pictures. And I'm, oh my God, what is this? And I immediately closed it, right? I want to look at this thing, right? Well, apparently her kids looked at this and studied it pretty well. Because when we were locked up in the attic, off come the clothes, and here we go. We're going to emulate what we see in that book downstairs. And yes, indeedy doodly, my cousins were basically performing orgies upstairs in the attic. Now, these were children that were, the oldest one was maybe 6, okay, maybe 8, right? So I think maybe the oldest one was 8, and it's 8, 6, 4, 3 kids. And they were upstairs emulating what they saw in a book, Now, the one boy, he's just a boy. He's like 6 years old, so he can't get an erection. But they did their best to try to emulate what was going on in a book. So oral stuff, anal stuff, and attempted vaginal stuff. Right? They tried to do what was in these books, and it was the most horrific thing. I'm like, they're trying to get me involved, and I'm like, no, I'm not taking off my clothes. But this was the kind of stuff, and it's like, and it was just horrifying. Now, I knew as a little kid, I was, 6 years old maybe, this was not right. Now, my sister, who was older, she never experienced any of this because, like I said, she didn't get locked in the attic. She didn't get locked outside. She got to take care of the babies, right? So she was a protected class citizen. The rest of us were like, savage, So just absolutely just the most debauchery that you could possibly imagine. And it was just horrifying to experience, and seared into my mind forever of my cousins emulating these books. So that was the worst. And then luckily, we ended up with another member of the church named Sue. And this was when we were both in school. So my parents would drop us off over at Sue's house in the morning. And then we would take the school bus from there and then come back to her house after school. And then our parents would pick us up. So a little bit before school and a little bit after, we would be at Sue's house. And Sue is a nice person. Now, Sue's house, we had real milk. And we had, I don't know how many different cereals she had. She had all kinds of cereal to choose from. And you don't know about it now, but back in those days, every cereal, uh, most of them were targeted at kids, and they all had a surprise in the box. Okay, some kind of little toy of some kind uh, in the box. And dang it, I wanted those toys. So she wouldn't go digging for them. She would just, pour the cereal out, and when the prize came out, the prize came out. What made me so mad is that she would take that prize and stick it up in the shelf. So, basically she was keeping it for the kids, but didn't want to make it look like that she was keeping it for her kids, she was trying to make it look like, nobody got the surprise, right? That it went up in the shelf and nobody got it, so that I wouldn't, even be more angry. It's like, listen, lady, the toy, the surprise came out in my bowl. Okay, it's mine. But that was probably the, a kid's mentality. So I got upset about that, but that was the only thing. Everything else was really cool. She let us play. We played with the toys. Her son had the Crash Up Derby cars, right? So that's where I, got the idea for getting them for Christmas, was from them, because they had a pair of those cars, and I can remember I just played with those things as much as I could and took good care of them. I always took good care of, my toys and other people's toys as well. So I made sure I didn't lose any of the parts, because these cars were like, you'd crash them into each other and parts would go flying. That was the whole point, right? They were designed to like fly off. And so, I made sure I would put them all back exactly the way that they were and put them up, where I got them. But good times over at Sue's house. And she let me watch what I wanted to watch on TV for the most part, which was Captain Kangaroo. Okay. Occasionally, my sister would come in and try to turn it over to some other bull crap like, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood or Sesame Street or some other bull crap like that, But usually I got my way and we watched Captain Kangaroo. But Sue was a good one. The best of all of them. So I really cared about her. I did get my butt whipped one time being at Sue's, but that was obviously my fault and should be expected. So, like I said, this is first or second grade. I can't remember which, but it's probably second grade when I was over Sue's. And I had got a cavalry sword. So I always, after Christmas, I'd get a cowboy outfits and stuff like that, right? Well, as part of the outfit that I got included a cavalry sword, right? This curved sword. And I freaking loved that thing, right? So one day I decided, instead of going to Sue's after school, I'm just going to go to my house so I can play with my sword. Right? So I got on the bus to my house. And I don't remember going inside. I think the doors were locked. But my sword was somehow accessible. I don't know if I had left it there on purpose or whatever, if I'd planned this thing out. But my sword was there. So I grabbed up my sword. And of course, it was wintertime. It was snowing. It was freezing cold. Right? So, so everybody shows up to Sue's house except me. And I'm out on the front porch of our house swinging my sword around, and here comes Sue's husband, and he was not happy. Okay. I guess she called him away from work to come and get me. And so he shows up, boy, I was looking at him like, hey, what's up, buddy? Hey, you look a little mad there, buddy. What's going on? And he picked me up and whooped my butt, 5 times. What are you doing here? What dare you? You're supposed to get on the bus to my house. What are you doing out here? You're going to freeze to death. You're Are you crazy? I'm like, I ought to get my sword. He says, I ought to break that sword in a million pieces. Oh, well, yeah, but that was the one time where I got in trouble. But most of the time it was pretty good. Um, I think that was it. After that, we were pretty much grown up, and we'd have babysitters come over to our house, when the parents wanted to go a night out, or something like that. But it was never anything like it was as a kid. Be careful about your babysitter, okay, that you choose. No matter how nice they may appear, your kid may be forced to sit at a counter for most of the time eating Spam sandwiches. Or you, they might end up in a freaking orgy. You don't know. So be careful on who you trust your kids with. Because, what was that? 2 out of 4 babysitters are complete nightmares. So that's it for this one. Next time, we'll see you next time.